It wasn't the shape in the trees that haunts me. It was the sound of my own mother's voice, calling my name from a mouth full of teeth that were not her own. You are listening to Nightbound Bloodline as we present 5 true creepypasta Skinwalker stories. The tales we share tonight live in a specific shade of darkness. They do not come from haunted European castles or mist-shrouded graveyards. They are born from the ancient soil and deep, silent pines of a land old with memory. They are stories of things that wear skin like a coat, and of the moment a human being realizes they are no longer at the top of the food chain. What you are about to hear are first-person accounts, curated from correspondence, forums, and testimonies. The names have been changed, but the fear is original. It is as real as the breath in your lungs. And it asks a single, terrible question: what watches you from the tree line when you dare to look? Our first story comes from a man we'll call James. It arrived in our inbox, simply titled, "The Thing on Route 550. Story 1. The Thing on Route 550. My name is James. I'm 48 years old. I've been a long-haul trucker for 22 years. I tell you that so you understand. I've seen every empty, lonely stretch of road this country has to offer, from 3 in the morning till the sun comes up. I don't believe in ghost stories. I believe in logbooks, diesel fuel, and the hum of good tires on asphalt. I need to believe in what's solid. Or at least, I used to. This happened last November on Route 550, cutting through the Navajo Nation in Utah. It was that deep, empty part of the night, about 2 a.m. No moon. Just my headlights carving a tunnel through a world of absolute black. There's nothing out there. No houses, no lights, just the occasional silhouette of a mesa against the starfield. It's beautiful in a lonely sort of way. But that night, the loneliness had a new texture to it. It felt attentive. The first thing I noticed was the smell. I had my windows up, the heater on, but this odor just seeped in. It was thick, musky, like a wet dog that had rolled in something rancid. Metallic, almost like blood, but sweeter. It was wrong. I checked my vents, thinking maybe I'd hit a skunk miles back, but this was different. This was alive. I shrugged it off, tired mind playing tricks. Then, my radio started to fritz. Not the usual static of a lost signal. This was a jagged, chittering noise, like insects made of broken glass. And beneath it, I swear, beneath it, I could hear what sounded like whispering. Not words, just vocal sounds. I turned it off. The silence that followed was heavier than any noise. That's when I saw the eyes. In my high beams, way up ahead on the shoulder. 2 points of light, a sickly, pale green. They were too high off the ground. Way too high. Deer eyes are low, maybe 3, 4 feet up. These were 6 feet easy. I eased off the gas, my hand going to the air horn. Probably a guy in dark clothes, I thought. Some broke-down motorist. As I got closer, the shape resolved, and my blood just turned to ice water in my veins. It was standing on the shoulder, facing the road. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, and impossibly thin, like its skeleton was just stretched too tight. It was covered in a patchy, matted fur that looked gray in the lights, but was probably a dirty brown. Its legs were backwards. I mean, the knees, they bent the wrong way, like a dog's hind legs, but it was standing upright. But it was the head. God, the head. It was elongated like a wolf's, but the snout was shorter, blunter, and it was wearing something. On its head, tilted at a crazy angle, was what looked like a tattered, old-fashioned sun hat. A woman's sun hat. And in its long, clawed hands, not paws, it was holding a frayed leather purse. It wasn't looking at the road. It was standing perfectly still, facing the scrub brush. As my rig roared past, its head snapped towards me. Not its body. Its head rotated on its neck a full 180 degrees to track me. The eyes weren't reflective anymore. They were black, oily pits in the hollows of its skull. And it smiled. Its muzzle peeled back, and it was full of yellow, needle-like teeth. It took the hat off. It took the damn hat off, and gave a little wave with one of those clawed fingers, like it was mocking the idea of being human. Like it knew the shape of a person, but not the substance. I slammed the gas. My rig, loaded heavy, groaned and picked up speed. I was sweating, shaking so bad I could barely keep the wheel straight. I didn't dare look at my mirrors for a full minute. When I finally did, my stomach dropped. There were no street lights, but I could see a shape, a darker black against the night, keeping pace with me in the desert. Running, on two backwards legs, that purse still swinging in its hand. It was keeping up with a truck doing 70 miles an hour. It wasn't even loping. It was graceful. It followed me for 5 miles. 5 endless miles. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it veered off into the darkness, disappearing into the emptiness like it had never been there at all. I didn't stop shaking until the sun came up. I've never driven that route again. I'll take a 500-mile detour before I go back. I know what I saw. I'm a practical man. I fix things that are broken. But what I saw that night, there's no fixing that. There's just living with it. And knowing that in all that emptiness, something was wearing a skin that didn't fit, and it saw me. It saw me, and it smiled. The account of James, a man who trusts only in the tangible, forever marked by the intangible. A road is a promise of connection, a tether to the world of men. When that tether is cut, we are reminded how thin the veneer of our world truly is. Our next story doesn't come from a lonesome highway, but from a place meant to be a sanctuary, a home. Story 2. What came with the coyotes? I'm Elena. I'm 34, a freelance graphic designer. My husband, Mark, and I moved out to a small property in Sedona, Arizona, for the quiet. We wanted the open sky, the red rocks, the peace. We were city people playing at being rural, I guess. But we learned fast. You learn the sounds, the owls, the javelinas rooting around, the coyotes singing at the moon. Their howls were part of the soundtrack of our new life. Beautiful in a wild way. I need you to understand, I was a skeptic. I loved the idea of the supernatural in movies and books, but in reality, I believed in Wi-Fi signals and grocery lists. Not in things that mimic. It started subtly. The coyote packs would yip and howl most nights, usually from a distance, down in the wash. But one night, about a month after we moved in, their cries changed. They were closer, right at the edge of our property line. And mixed in with their howls was something else. A sound that was almost a yodel, almost a word. It was too structured. Mark heard it too. He grabbed a flashlight and shone it from the back porch. Nothing. Just the twin red dots of eyes, maybe a dozen pairs, reflecting back from the scrub. They went silent the second the light hit them. The next night, it was worse. The cries were aggressive, guttural. And then, they stopped altogether. The silence was worse than the noise. It was a listening silence. That's when the knocking started. A slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap on the side of our wooden fence. Not random, rhythmic, human. My dog, a brave little terrier mix named Beans, shot to the back door, not barking, but whining, his entire body trembling, a low growl stuck in his throat. He hid under the couch and refused to come out. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice sounded so small. The knocking stopped. And then, from the other side of the fence, Mark's voice called back. "Honey, it's me." I locked myself out. "Can you open the gate?" My blood ran cold. Mark was snoring next to me in bed. I could feel the weight of him, hear his deep, sleepy breaths. I crept to the window, peered through a slit in the blinds. The motion sensor light on the garage hadn't come on. The yard was pitch black, but I could see a shape, darker than the darkness, standing just outside the fence. It was tall, too tall, and it was standing perfectly straight. It spoke again, in Mark's voice, but it was wrong. It was like listening to a recording played at the wrong speed, the cadence just slightly off. "Elena, come let me in. It's cold." I couldn't move. I was frozen. The thing outside clicked its tongue, a sound Mark makes when he's impatient. Then it laughed. But the laugh broke apart halfway through, crumbling into a wet, choking series of yips and snarls. The sound of a coyote trying to force a human sound back out of its throat. It started to climb. I heard the scrape of long nails on wood. I saw the top of its head crest the fence. It wasn't a coyote's head. It was hairless, the skin a mottled, sickly gray in the starlight. The ears were pointed, but too long, like a donkey's. And its eyes, they reflected the faint light from our bedroom window, not with the green of an animal, but with a dull, flat orange. I finally found my voice and screamed. I screamed for the real Mark, and he bolted awake. The second I screamed, the thing on the fence let out a shriek, a pure, animal sound of rage, and dropped back into the darkness. We heard the frantic scramble of many bodies, not just one, tearing off into the desert. We didn't sleep. We sat with all the lights on, beans shaking in my lap. At dawn, we went outside. There were no human footprints. But there, in the soft dirt by the fence, were tracks. They were canine, like a large dog or a coyote, but the front paws had an opposable thumb-like digit. And they were deep, as if whatever made them was immensely heavy for its size. We found the remains of a jackrabbit on our porch step. It wasn't eaten. It was arranged. Its entrails were pulled out and laid in a spiral pattern. A offering. A threat. A joke. We moved back to the city 2 weeks later. We sold the property at a loss. I can't stand the sound of coyotes anymore, because I know now that sometimes they aren't just singing. Sometimes they're learning, and something is learning from them. A home violated, a voice stolen. The mimic does not just wear skin, it wears familiarity, turning our deepest comforts into weapons. The wilderness holds its secrets close, but sometimes they follow us home. Yet, there are older secrets, buried not in sand or soil, but in the memory of stone and timber. Our next story takes us from the desert to the deep, ancient woods of the Appalachian Range, a place where the shadows have weight and the past is never truly gone. Story 3. Don't trust the lights in the holler. My name's Leo. I'm 62 now, retired. Spent 40 years with the Forestry Service, most of it in the Monongahela National Forest. I know those woods like I know the lines on my own hands. Knew every type of moss, every bird call, every bear den for miles. I was a man of the woods. And a man of the woods knows there are places you just don't go. Not out of fear of getting lost, but out of respect. Out of knowing some things are older than your understanding. This was back in '89. I was doing a solo survey in a remote section, a deep, narrow holler that didn't see sunlight till near noon. The air was always cool, damp, smelling of rot and wet stone. It was quiet, too quiet. No squirrels chattering, no birds. That's your first red flag, but I had a job to do. I made camp as evening fell, built a small fire, cooked my beans. That's when I saw the first light. A soft, bluish glow, bobbing between the trees maybe 100 yards down the slope. Not a flashlight beam. This was fuzzy, like swamp gas, but moving with purpose. Will-o'-the-wisp, my granddaddy would have called it. Fool's fire. I figured it was phosphorescent fungus, maybe. I ignored it. But then another appeared. And another. Soon, there were half a dozen of these pale lights, drifting through the trees in a slow, deliberate circle around my camp. The silence was absolute. No crickets, no wind. Just the crackle of my fire and the thump of my own heart. A smell hit me then, sweet and cloying, like rotting honeysuckle. It made my head swim. I stood up, my hand on my hatchet. "Hello," I called out. My voice didn't echo. It just got swallowed up. The lights stopped. Then, from the direction of the largest one, I heard a voice. It was a child's voice, a little girl's, but thin and stretched. "Mister, I'm lost. I'm scared." Every hair on my body stood up. There were no families for 20 miles. No kids. It was a trap. I'd heard the old stories, of course. Things that lured you off the trail with cries for help. I didn't move. I just said, "Show yourself." The light pulsed. and the thing stepped into the edge of my firelight. It was crouched low, on all fours, but its limbs were all wrong, too long, jointed in too many places. Its skin was the color of bark and clung tight to its bones, shiny in the firelight like it was wet. It had no hair. Its face, it was trying to be a human face. It had the basic shape, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, but they were smoothed over, unfinished, like a clay figure left in the rain. And its eyes were solid, reflective orbs that held the same cold blue glow as the lights. It cocked its head, and the child's voice came from it again, but now it was layered with a guttural, clicking noise. "Don't you want to help me?" I took a step back, towards my pack and my rifle. The moment I moved, its posture changed. The mimicry dropped. It dropped its jaw open, wider than any animal should be able to, and let out a hiss that sounded like steam escaping a rotten log. The other lights surged forward. I didn't think. I acted. I kicked my fire apart, sending a shower of embers and burning sticks towards it. It shrieked, a real, tearing sound of rage and pain, and scuttled backwards into the dark. I didn't wait. I grabbed my rifle and my pack and I ran. I didn't care about direction, just away. I could hear them moving in the trees around me, keeping pace. Not running, but loping, crashing through the undergrowth. They weren't trying to catch me. They were hurting me. I saw one of the lights zip ahead of me, and I skidded to a stop. I was at the edge of a ravine, a steep drop into blackness. They'd circled me right to a cliff. I turned, bringing my rifle up. The things were there, maybe 30 feet away, just at the tree line. 5 of them, crouched in a semicircle. They were silent now, just watching with those awful blue eyes. I fired a shot into the air. The report was monstrous in the silent woods. They didn't flinch. The lead one just pointed a long, twig-like finger at me, then pointed down into the ravine. An invitation, or a command. I was trapped, so I did the only thing the old story said to do. I started cursing. Not modern curses. I used the old words, the harsh, guttural words my granddaddy said came over from the old country, words for evil and for banishment. I poured every bit of fear and anger into them, and it confused them. Their heads tilted. The lights flickered. I kept shouting, advancing on them step by step, spitting those ancient curses. They began to withdraw, fading back into the trees, their lights dimming. I didn't stop until the last glow had vanished and the normal sounds of the forest, the peepers, the wind, tentatively returned. I hiked out straight through the night and never went back to that holler. I put in for a transfer not long after. I know what lives in those deep places now. They're not ghosts. There's something that was here before us, something that remembers when the woods were darker and deeper, and they're waiting for us to forget the old ways. They're waiting for us to get lost. Leo's story is a testament to the old warnings, to the knowledge that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the forest is not what is wild, but what is ancient and hungry for the warmth of our world. Some encounters do not end with a retreat into the familiar world. Some sink their claws into you, and the escape is only geographical. The memory becomes a tenant in your mind, paying its rent in cold sweat and sleepless nights. Our next correspondent knows this all too well. His story doesn't end in the wild, but in the last place we expect the wild to follow us. Story 5, The Lesson of the Third Hill. I grew up here, in the high desert. My grandparents raised me. They taught me the stories, the real stories, not for entertainment, but for survival. They taught me about the nosleep. You call them skinwalkers. We do not say that name lightly. To speak of them is to invite their attention. But this story must be told, so you will understand why we have the rules we do. I was 16, brave and foolish. My friends and I, we thought the old ways were just that, old. We were modern. We listened to radios, drove trucks. We thought we knew better than the warnings. One night, on a dare, we decided to go out to the place near the third hill, the one the elders said was a place of bad medicine, a place where the lines between worlds were thin. We went in my cousin's truck, laughing, the radio blaring. We parked at the foot of the hill. The laughter died in our throats the moment the engine cut. The silence was a physical thing. It pressed in on the cab. No crickets, no wind. The air smelled clean, too clean, like ozone after a lightning strike, but with an underlying hint of ash and dried herbs. We should have left, but pride is a poison. We got out, our flashlights cutting weak beams in the immense dark. We were going to prove there was nothing to fear. That's when we heard the drum. A single, slow, deep beat that seemed to come from the ground itself. Thump. Then another. Thump. It was not a celebration drum. It was a walking drum. A heartbeat drum. My blood turned to ice. My grandfather's words echoed in my head. When you hear the drum with no drummer, you close your eyes, you get in the metal, and you go. You do not look. But my friend, the one who made the dare, he smirked. Coyotes, he said, and he yelled, a loud, whooping challenge into the night. The drum stopped. From the crest of the third hill, a figure stood up. It had been crouched, waiting. It was tall and wore only what looked like dark shorts. Its skin was pale in the starlight, gleaming like it was dusted with something. It stood on two legs, but its posture was wrong, slumped forward, arms too long. It had the head of a stag, but the antlers were twisted, broken in places. And from the neck of that stag head hung strands of beads and feathers that did not move in the still air. It looked down at us. We were frozen, trapped in its gaze. Then it started to come down the hill. It did not walk. It loped, covering ground with an impossible, gliding speed, its limbs moving in a disjointed, fluid scramble. My cousin was the first to break. He screamed and fumbled for the truck door. The sound broke the spell. We scrambled, falling over each other to get inside. I was in the back seat, and as my cousin cranked the engine, I made the mistake. The fatal mistake. I looked out the back window. It was standing right behind the truck. It was so close. The stag head was a mask. I could see the straps of hide tying it on. And behind the eye holes of the mask, there were no animal eyes. There were human eyes. They were wide, bloodshot, and blazing with a kind of mad, knowing intelligence. And they were amused. It saw my fear, and it drank it in. It leaned down, placing those long-fingered hands on the tailgate. It opened its mouth, a human mouth below the jawline of the mask, and its tongue lolled out, black and too long. It spoke. Its voice was a dry rasp, like stones grinding together, but I understood the words. It spoke in our language, but backwards. The syllables were inverted, a cruel mockery of prayer. Then, it did the thing that haunts me most. It reached up with one hand and tapped its temple, right where the mask's eye hole was. A gesture. I see you. I know you. My cousin found the gears and we tore out of there, spraying gravel. We drove for an hour in silence, too terrified to speak. When we finally got to my grandfather's hogan, the old man was waiting outside, as if he knew. He took one look at our faces, at the terror in our eyes, and his own filled with a deep, weary sadness. He didn't yell. He just said, "You looked. You gave it a face to remember." We were sick for 3 days. Fever dreams, vomiting. My grandfather and a medicine man worked over us, singing, cleansing. We recovered. But my friend, the one who yelled the challenge, he was never right again. He moved away to the city, but he calls sometimes in the middle of the night, whispering that he sees a man with a stag's head standing under the streetlight outside his apartment, just tapping its temple. The lesson was given. The Yinald Lushii are not monsters from a story. They are a consequence. They are what happens when a person breaks the most sacred laws, when they seek power in the darkest places and twist themselves into something else to get it. They are a warning. They remind us that some knowledge has a price too high to pay, and that some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. We do not speak of them to frighten children. We speak of them so that the curious, the proud, the foolish might choose to stay in the light. 5 stories. 5 fractures in the wall of our understanding. From the desert highway to the deep woods, From the suburban office park to the sacred hills, a single, terrifying thread connects them: the violation of the natural order by something that wears a stolen skin. These are not mere ghost stories. They are reports from the edge of our world, testimonies of a reality that is older, darker, and far more animate than we are comfortable admitting. They remind us that the unknown is not always empty. Sometimes it is watching. Sometimes it learns. Sometimes it points a long finger and remembers your face. If you have a story of your own, a moment where the world tilted and showed you something it shouldn't, we invite you to share it in the comments below. Your experience may be the thread that connects another's fear. If you found yourself holding your breath tonight, journeying with these witnesses into the dark, please like this video and subscribe to Nightbound Bloodline. We are your chroniclers of the shadows, your guides to the places just beyond the edge of the map. Thank you for listening. This has been Nightbound Bloodline. Until next time, sleep with one eye open. The end.